Verizon has been a huge supporter of Playcrafting and the game developer community here in New York for some time now. Please join me in welcoming Kat Schmitz, concept designer from the Verizon 5G lab in New York.
Hey there, my name is Kat Schmitz and I'm the concept designer of the 5G lab at Verizon. On behalf of Verizon, I'm delighted to give this keynote speech. Huge thanks to Playcrafting and all of the hard work that the team does to ensure the game dev community will remain strong, even in these trying times. So you might be wondering what Verizon and gaming have to do with each other. Our Fios gigabit connection is ideal for tech-forward houses where a lag-free gaming experience is non-negotiable. And 5G is a great use case for gaming as well, as it enables low latency interactions across the network, high bandwidth for game streams, and even enables edge computing capabilities. While I could talk about the end benefits of Fios and 5G for days, I'd like to shift the focus on some of the makers behind the games we see in the world. Specifically, I'll be focusing on the spirit of the indie community and why that is so critical and important for innovation and growth, and how large companies like Verizon can partner with smaller studios to test ideas, prototype, and create games that have impact in many ways. Verizon has been partnering with Playcrafting for several years now. To date, we've created over 10 games with the community, awarded nearly $1 million in developer funding, and made it possible for developers to show their games at key events like the Super Bowl and the floor of E3. Some of these games are still shown on a daily basis and continue to help people better understand why gaming is such a great use case for 5G. So let me take you back in time and explain how this whole game-making situation even started and how Verizon got hooked up with Playcrafting. When I was a grad student at Parsons, I started making games on my own. They were very low fidelity and they barely worked, but there was an inkling of a good idea there, and I just needed a bit of feedback from the pros. So I would go to Playcrafting's events to test my games and get an idea of what people would say. I would sheepishly set up my little table, and I would stand there, brave like a warrior, ready for the worst critique. For anyone who's ever made anything, you know that this is a very vulnerable experience. And upon showing my game, I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting people to rip my game to shreds and ask me what kind of nerve I had to show up. But I soon realized how the Playcrafting community is exactly the opposite of that. People next to me were helping set up my booth. Others would walk by and spend 10 minutes giving me their thoughts about how I can improve, and some even swapped information to stay in touch with me and collaborate in the future. I was new to this. I didn't know about what a game engine was. I had never made a game in my life before this, but the community welcomed me wholeheartedly and helped me grow as a maker and expand my view. So fast forward a few years, I still haven't become a famous game designer, but I have started going to this thing that you all might know pretty well, the annual Global Game Jam that Playcrafting hosts. I met even more people, I learned even more new ways about how to think creatively, and I was blown away by how fearless and eager people were to try experimental work and learn new skills. Not only were we making games together, but we were learning through workshops, we were chatting with each other on Slack, and even help each other test and debug in the final hours. And as a reminder, this is what the community is acting like in a competition. I'm sure that many of you will nod emphatically here, but let me tell you, the experience was exhilarating. Our team poured our heart and our soul into the project, and we learned so much along the way. I'm telling you this story because Playcrafting and their community made a deep impact on me in these two circumstances. I learned about how giving, how vulnerable, and how eager people are to learn and grow together. The indie dev community tests new ideas fearlessly, and they're not afraid to ask questions to make sure they understand it all. They're not afraid to look stupid, they don't pretend to know everything, and nobody's ego is getting in the way of progress. So fast forward to my time at Verizon. At the 5G lab, we were tasked with understanding how 5G is going to make an impact in various industries and help explain it to the world. So we do that through various partnerships, academic programs, and internal concept development. And in the lab, we have 5G in a test environment, so we can actually test out the solutions that we're proposing. And as we know, Verizon is committed to building the best platforms for these experiences, and the 5G Lab is where a lot of these early insights and learnings help inform other teams across the company. So we were exploring 5G and entertainment, and as I mentioned earlier, a very strong use case for 5G is gaming. 5G has the high bandwidth and the low latency, and then when you throw edge compute in there, there's a lot to explore. So this is when the light bulb really went off for me. I thought to myself, well, Verizon's 5G Lab has an awesome test bed where startups, enterprises, and people can come to test their solutions. And Playcrafting has a fearless community who is dedicated to learning new skills and experimenting. It was so obvious that we needed to work together and to collaborate to make the world's first 5G games. The hypothesis was that we'll spend one weekend together and we'll learn about what is compelling to developers, we'll explore some future game formats, and we'll have fun doing it. And we did that, but we also completely blew past our expectations with not only one game jam, but another one after that, and a whole prototyping initiative with the NFL and Playcrafting after that. It was like an indie dev and 5G snowball that was rolling down the hill and could not be stopped. We explored everything. First, we investigated how we design different games if we had the power of 5G and cloud gaming on a phone. Instead of just playing that PC game scrunched down for a phone screen, what if the mobile developers of the world, who were so used to shackles and constraints, got to design a mobile game with the power of a PC? There were so many outputs, and some included vertical scrolling games where you were in charge of navigating as a flock of birds. There was a multiplayer game where you played as two knights who were simultaneously dueling and navigating a rocket, and a destruction game where everything your character touches explodes into a million pieces. And another exploration: how can 5G level up an AR experience? An example was a resource management concept that required precision, persistence, and clever gestures. Another one explored how we could get everyone in a football stadium to participate in an AR game, defining what a massive multiplayer experience might look like. And the list goes on. And while Verizon showed up with a quality network and the engineers who could answer questions and provide 5G primers, it was really the Playcrafting community that showed up with their creativity, their fearlessness in trying new things, and their willingness to be at the edge of gaming to create these prototypes with us. And in all of these games, I got to experience the joy of problem solving for them. How do you actually sword fight while riding a rocket? How do you actually pull out seaweed from the bottom of an island in AR? How do 1,000 people punt a football into the back of a truck in a stadium? I was able to learn about all of these questions because all of the wonderful devs that I got to work with were eager and willing to not make any game, but to make a game that switched things up for people and made them think differently. It exposed me and it exposed Verizon to a new, faster way of thinking about games. We even invited our own internal teams to participate in these jams with you. And I think it's safe to say we all walked away feeling excited about what we made, and it inspired us to see all of the teams come together to help each other out. Our insights and strategy team even got to sit with game developers and actually listen to their concerns, hear what was exciting to them, and pass that on to the company. You know, so often game developers are told this is how it has to be and you're just going to have to figure it out. But this time was different because we had our people listening to you to better understand what makes for a great 5G development experience, what makes for a great 5G game. And that was deeply inspiring to me because it underlined for me how important it is to listen to our game developers and to collaborate together so that we can better understand who we're building platforms for and what's going to resonate the most. So since our game jams and our prototyping initiatives, we've been pretty hard at work over at Verizon. We were the first in the world with 5G, and we're continuing to lead now with mobile edge compute through our partnership with AWS Wavelength and our Fios gigabit offering. I know that Playcrafting in the community has also been busy, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have been up to over the course of Play NYC. So I'll close with that with a heartfelt thank you. Thank you for bringing your energy, your curiosity, and your playfulness to the gaming community. You continue to inspire us all to grow and stretch the limits of what's possible. I cannot wait to see what you're up to next.